Welcome, everybody, to the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I'm Sean Hammond, Bears beat reporter for ShawLocal.com. If you're ready to talk some Bears and some Giants, you've come to the right place. My co-host and buddy Kyle Neighbors is away at the moment, but he will be back very soon. In his place, we have another member of our Bears team, the man who sits beside me at every Bears home game, Shaw Local's very own Jake Bartleson. Jake, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I'm doing well, Sean. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. I'm ready to talk some football. It's week 4 in the NFL. The Bears are heading out to New York, or I should say to New Jersey, to face the Giants. And we got two teams that are sitting here with winning records. I don't think a whole lot of us expected that to be the case here in week 4.
Yeah, I think, the Bears certainly getting that surprising week 1 win against San Francisco. Not many expected. And the Giants in a similar situation with the Bears, with new regime, new coach, quarterback unknown, future moving forward kind of thing. But they're sitting in similar spots. in some ways good for them, and other ways not so good. And we'll dive into that.
You're absolutely right. They're in similar spots. You look at some of the numbers. They're in similar spots, not just with the record, but also with the way that they've been playing. Two very run heavy offenses so far, two of the top 4 in the league, and two quarterbacks who aren't really getting it done in the passing game at this point. But before we dive in, I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors. Caesars Sportsbook is an official partner of the Bears Insider Podcast. Scan the QR code in the corner of your screen to sign up. If you're with us here live, you can scan that. And also Marengo Guns. Marengo Guns, always buying, always paying top dollar for your guns, ammo, and military items. Come see the experts at Marengo Guns, open 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. Thank you to our sponsors. And, looking at this matchup, Jake, there was obviously the Bears won last week. We had plenty of critiques about that win, but you're sitting here, you're 2-1, you're going up against a Giants team that's also feeling good about itself, but maybe not playing as well as the record seems to indicate. You look at these offenses, really run heavy. Another big opportunity potentially for Khalil Herbert. David Montgomery has yet to practice this week. What do you make of that situation at running back?
I'm not surprised that we haven't seen David practice this week. And I think if you're looking big picture in a couple weeks, I think the Bears are, generally speaking, okay with that. I don't think there's a huge rush to get him back until he is healthy. And again, as we talked at length earlier in the week, you have that insurance policy with Khalil Herbert coming off that huge win. I think they're going to be just fine. You got Tristan Ebner you can put in there. I know he's been utilized more, a kick return. But he could be another change of pace back for them. So I think if you're the Bears, no rush to get David back. Yeah, you would like to have him back in there for sure. But until he's healthy, I think you'll be okay for the time being.
Yeah, we haven't seen David Montgomery at practice. We haven't really even spotted him in the locker room the couple of days that we've been in there so far this week. But Khalil Herbert was really impressive in that game on Sunday, and you feel like you're in good hands. I was also talking to Tristan Ebner. We'll have a story up on that soon about kick return, but also he's getting a little look here on the offense. He had several touches in that game last week on Sunday, and he's making the most of his opportunity. We'll see if they need to call his number again, because you're right, Jake. You don't need to rush David Montgomery back at this point. Obviously, you like him. He's your top running back for a reason. But you got a really quality guy in Khalil Herbert, and you're able to sort of weather the storm if you need to give David a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is. Obviously, it's a good sign, too, that he did not go on IR this week. That seems to indicate that he's going to be back sometime in the next 3 or 4 weeks at the latest. Otherwise, they would have put him on IR. And you're talking about IR. You're also looking at a guy like Byron Pringle, who went out early in that game against the Texans with a calf injury, and it appears to have been somewhat severe because they put him on IR this week. That's another wide receiver down from a group of wide receivers who hasn't been very deep up to this point. And you kind of you're looking at a guy like Velus Jones to potentially step up. He's has not made his regular season debut yet with a hamstring injury. He's been in and out of practice all August and into, obviously, well, not just into September. September's almost over. But you're kind of hopeful that he might be back this week. What do you make of what's going on at receiver with Byron Pringle go down?
Yeah, I think this would be a really good opportunity for Velas to get into the fold and start, kind of introducing himself to Bears fans as to, why he got drafted as high as he did. I think he has a lot of qualities that could help this offense and certainly kind of take some of the spotlight off of Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, and some of the others that we've talked about at length. So if the Bears can get something out of Velas, then great. And they got to get him going. But again, hamstring injuries are like any kind of injury. Hamstring injuries are tough, especially soft tissue, wide receiver. Bears fans probably remember like Alshon Jeffrey a number of years ago, where he was in and out of the lineup. He was super effective when he was in it, but when he was not healthy, obviously not as big of a factor. So, with Velas, try to get him in the fold, get him some touches, familiarity with Justin, and see where that takes you.
Our guy Rick here, regular on the show. Rick, thanks for joining. He says, "Will Velus Jones play on Sunday?" And before I get to that, guys, if you want to get your questions in, if you're watching on Twitter, hit the link to go to YouTube, and you can join us here in the conversation. You can type in your questions. We will be answering questions, throughout the show. So come join us. It's a lot of fun. Rick, here's where I'm at with Velus. Obviously, he hasn't played in a game yet. He's been limited in practice still this week. I think we're recording this, early on Friday. We don't have the Friday injury report yet. I think if he is a full participant in Friday, that is a very good sign because he has not been full at all during the regular season. I still, even if he's limited, I'm kind of leaning towards that he might be playing just because I think they really need him with Pringle going out. And I know you can put some other guys in different roles. You can, you have Dante Pettis, you have Amir Smith-Marset, you have other guys, but I do think, if Velus is able to practice, if he's good enough to get out there a little bit, he's probably good enough to go in a game and give it a try. But, we'll just have to see, these guys, they've been pretty cautious with him the whole last 2 months. So we'll kind of have to see how that plays out today on Friday.
Yeah, Sean, I agree with you. I think today's injury report is going to tell us a lot. It's not the definitive, certainly there could be a surprise come, Sunday. There's a change on Saturday or anything like that. But I think if he's a full participant, even limited, I think there's a relatively good chance you do see him in some capacity. I don't expect a whole lot of snaps from him if he does play. I think, to use a baseball analogy, I think there'll be some sort of a snap pitch count, if you will. But again, if they can get him in the fold and start getting some snaps in him, I think that would be a welcome addition to an offense that clearly needs as much as they can get right now out of that position.
Those are great points, Jake. And you look at the numbers behind the snap counts, and it's not like Byron Pringle was playing a ton of snaps.
Right.
He was playing 30% of offensive snaps. So you don't need a guy to be out there every single play, which is maybe a good thing if you're trying to get Velus back in there. Also, you're talking about Byron Pringle, who has 2 catches on the season. I know a lot of people were mentioning that on Twitter, like, oh my gosh, how are they going to replace a guy with 2 catches, jokingly. But you know what? That's still a loss. That's still a guy who was, he started the last game. He was on the field the first play of the game. He's been a part of their plan all season long. So that's obviously not good when you're losing a guy who's been so involved in your game planning. But this is an opportunity here for Velus if that hamstring is working for him, if that's favorable. I'm going to throw up another question here from Renewable and Rechargeable Review. Patrick at center full time. I kind of thought he was going to be at center full time last game, and they didn't do that. He wouldn't be snapping the football in practice for no reason, but apparently the thumb wasn't quite where they needed it to be, or he wasn't comfortable enough with it. Luke Getzey told us that there's no issues, with him and Justin snapping the ball. That's not the issue. It's more Lucas's thumb. And so you kind of got to play that out week by week. And hopefully that's getting stronger and he's able to do that in the near future. I'm kind of leaning towards I think we're going to see this rotation go on another week at least, just because not a whole lot seems to have changed. And we saw Lucas. We don't get to watch a whole lot of practice these days during the regular season, maybe only 10 or 15 minutes, but I didn't see him take a snap on Thursday. So I'm kind of thinking he's still working at that right guard spot, and he significantly outsnapped Tevin something like 60% to 30% in that game against Houston, and Lucas was the starter. Those are important little notes when you're trying to read through all this. Matt Eberflus said he wanted to see Tevin Jenkins have a better full week of practice, not just 1 or 2 good days, but for 3 straight days, have a good week of practice. And we'll have to see, we'll know if he did, if he's out there playing a lot. Jake, what do you make of what's going on the offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to our conversation, back on Monday, where I don't think there's a huge rush if you're the Bears to launch Sam Musfer out of there and put Lucas in just for the sake of moving him over. Again, I know you signed him as to be kind of your marquee free agent signing on that offensive line, but until that thumb is where it needs to be in terms of snapping, I think Sam has played well enough to continue to stave that off. And Sean, is to your point, that rotation continues to work. With Lucas and Tevin. The snap count for me, and again, I'd have to go back and do kind of the nitty gritty. I think some of that might have played into just the drives that Lucas was in were sustained a lot longer.
Yep.
So I think that's a little bit of what's going on, but clearly, the Bears like what they have in Lucas, and as you mentioned, they want to see Tevin practice a little bit better. All those are just little things that play into, the situation, that we see unfold on Sunday.
We got a comment here from Glenn Robinson asking how Hub is. Yeah, obviously we're all thinking of Hub. Thanks for asking, Glenn. Hub is continuing to recover, and we're all just hoping that he gets back soon.
Yeah, every once in a while you'll see Arthur, his son, post updates on Twitter, and that's the best source for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate the updates from Arthur. Keep an eye out for those. We miss him. We miss him on this show a lot, especially, and obviously, I miss seeing him every day at Hallis Hall because he's a great partner, and we hope to get him back soon. Jake, looking at sort of what's transpired. Speaking of Hallis Hall, what's transpired this week? Something notable seemed to be to come out of the media sessions with the coordinators. Luke Getsy was asked a couple of different ways if they're holding anything back because of Justin Fields, if he's causing, if his struggles have made them hold things back a little bit with this offense. And Luke was very adamant that that's not the case. He said no, asked, what they can do to open up the passing game. He kind of balked at it and said the passing game's open. And right. I think if you look at the numbers, it doesn't necessarily tell the same story as what he's trying to say. And I know he's always gonna back up his quarterback. That's what these guys do. What do you make of what Getsy was saying and how that sort of jives with what you're actually seeing with your eyes on the field?
Right. So, I mean, at the risk of playing Monday morning quarterback, I think, people on Twitter, especially in the last couple of days, there's been clips on Twitter pop up with Justin and film session reviews and, the Mooney interception in particular, going back to last Sunday, threw in triple coverage, and he probably had a couple different options there open. Again, it goes back to Justin seeing the entire field. There's a lot of variables that play into that. So on one hand, I kind of see what Luke Getsy's saying is like, look, actually, we're scheming guys open. I just need my quarterback to get the football there. So I don't have the playbook. Obviously, I'm not privy to all those types of meetings. And so my sense is I don't feel like they're holding a whole lot back from him. You had an entire offseason to install things and work with them. So, it's not like this is a guy that's, coming in off the street in his first week and you're trying to get him up to speed just with the basics. So, this is a work in progress, and this is just an operative term that we're going to be seeing and hearing all year. You're going to get some really good Justin Fields moments. You're going to get some not so good Justin Fields moments. And then, wherever that equilibrium, that middle point is where things will fall.
Yeah, I tend to believe Luke on some level. You know, I think that they are obviously they're doing what they have to do to win football games, and that means running the ball a lot. I do think that Justin's mobility plays into that. The fact that he was sacked so many times, you know, those are you look at the pass attempts, yeah, they're low, but he's been sacked. You know, he's towards the top of the league in sacks allowed, and obviously he's a scrambler. He's gonna run out of the pocket. You know, if things break down from time to time, that's just part of his game. That's what he does, and that's going to make those numbers look a little bit lower. But at the same time, you know, you got to figure out what he can do, and you want to see him throw the football. And I think a lot of fans feel that way, and a lot of folks across the NFL are looking at these numbers and saying, you know, you're not necessarily learning what you need to know about Justin Fields. But I think it's fair to sort of pump the brakes and give them time. This is a new system. This was week 3. You know, I'm willing to see what this looks like down the line. And keep in mind, I mean, he hasn't. I know he's in his second year. He hasn't played a full season. He didn't get
13 starts.
the 13 starts. You got another 14 starts if he remains healthy the rest of the year. That's that's going to tell you a heck of a lot more than what we already know from these first 3 games. You know, so take what Luke Getzey was saying with a grain of salt, but also, you know, have a little patience. I think we all need a little patience when we're looking at Justin and this situation, you know, moving ahead with this offense.
Yeah, Sean, real
Yeah, go
quick
ahead.
to piggyback off that, if fans want a really good balanced analysis of how Justin played last week, in addition to ours, of course, Trent Dilfer went on The Score a couple days ago. Go find it on YouTube. He talks for 15 minutes. Trent Dilfer, of course, Super Bowl winning quarterback. Guy knows exactly what he's talking about when it comes to it. So I think that's just another resource if you really need something positive to drink down about Justin and the way he's playing, go find that, because there's a lot of good nuggets from there from a former quarterback himself.
Great point, Jake. Love the shout out. And, you know, we look at this matchup here with the Giants. We kind of turn our attention to this week. You got 2 teams that run the ball a heck of a lot. You got 2 defenses that are giving up a lot of rushing yards. Where are you at with when you look at Saquon Barkley and this Giants rushing attack, and then you look across at the Bears defensive line that has maybe been a little bit underwhelming in both against the run and, you know, in the pass rush. I think they only have 6 sacks through 3 games. What do you make of this matchup for them?
I think this is a winnable game for the Bears. You know, again, it starts with that run game, and if they're able to get Khalil Herbert that, you know, those chunk yardage and you know, dominate on the line of scrimmage, I think this is a favorable matchup for the Bears. You know, these teams are quite similar, Sean. You know, I think the Giants, if they don't lead the league, it's pretty close. 40% of Daniel Jones's dropbacks have been sacks and pressures. So I'm looking at a guy like Robert Quinn, you know, who might have had a little bit of a quiet game on you know, against Houston. This is a game where you're going to see Robert Quinn, I feel like, feast. And you know, there'll be other opportunities for guys like Angelo Blackson, Dominic Robinson flashed a lot that week 1 win. Travis Gibson, I know the stats aren't probably saying the whole story, but he's really getting pressures and involved in plays. So I think if you're the Bears defensive line, this is a favorable matchup for you. And then offensively, continue to run the football and limit mistakes. And you know, those are basic recipes to win on the road.
Yeah, Jake, I love that you went there with the, you know, getting pressure on Daniel Jones. And I threw up Rick's question, what are the keys to a Bears win on Sunday, since that's basically what we're talking about here. And yeah, you got to get some pressure on Daniel Jones. You need more pressure from your defensive front. And you know, Alan Williams has talked a little bit about, you know, there's different ways that you can get pressure. You know, this isn't a defense that's going to blitz a lot. You want to get pressure with 4 guys, and you know, they can pick their spot. I think we saw that a little bit in that Houston game where they were picking their spots on 3rd down, especially
Right.
when to blitz, and that's good. But you know, they really need that production when they've only got 4 guys rushing. You got to get Robert Quinn going. I think Daniel Jones is the type of quarterback. You know, we've seen, how many times have we seen him strip sacked, or he's always getting hit. And this is an opportunity here for your defensive line to sort of get back on track and get to the quarterback. And you're right, Jake. It's hard when you're looking at pass rushers. Obviously, everybody sees sacks, everybody sees tackles for loss, but that doesn't tell the whole story. And Robert Quinn, especially, is one of those guys who his numbers always look good. You look at next gen stats; they tell you which pass rushers were closest to the quarterback on average. He's always near the top for the Bears.
Right.
That's a good sign. Travis Gibson, yeah, he hasn't gotten home. He's got what does he have? Two sacks in that Packers game, I think. So he's gotten home a few times, but yeah, he's another guy who's he's there, he's in the mix, and you just got to capitalize on a couple of those opportunities.
Right. And so, if you watch the Dallas Monday night game that the Giants played too, for as much as Daniel Jones gets hit, he can also, kind of similar to Justin, he can make plays with his feet too. If you break contain and you lose him, he'll go and get that first down. And I think that's kind of by virtue of how banged up at wide receiver they are. Unfortunately, they lost Sterling Shepard to that ACL injury and a non-contact thing. Tough to see. So that's one less guy for them. That is probably their best playmaker beyond Kadarius Toney to this point. So there's going to be opportunities for the Bears to get to Jones, but it's also a matter of not losing contain. And then Saquon is kind of back to what Saquon Barkley used to be. I think it took him a little while after that ACL injury that he suffered against the Bears. And he wasn't quite, that explosive running back that everyone fell in love with, when he was drafted second overall that year. But I think he's back, and he's obviously a huge part of what they do.
I'm going to throw this question up because you kind of touched on it there, where obviously, that was the big news from Monday night. Sterling Shepard is now out for the year with an ACL tear. Robert is asking, whose receiving core or whose receiving group is better currently, Bears or Giants? And I love this question because, especially with Sterling Shepard going out, you're looking at the Giants and you're saying, wow, they don't really have any receivers. And then you look at the Bears and you say, Darnell Mooney's been a ghost out there, and the Bears don't really have any receivers either. This is a great question, and I got to think about this for a second. But you look at the Giants right now, Richie James is leading them in receptions, and outside of Sterling Shepard, he's tops in receiving yards. And then the second guy in receptions is their running back, Saquon Barkley. He's getting a lot of dump offs, but Daniel Bellinger, David Sills, Kenny Galladay has barely been involved at all. And you mentioned Kadarius Toney. He's a young guy who has a ton of potential, but he's dealt with so many injuries over the last year and 3 games and hasn't really lived up to the hype at this point. I think these are pretty two evenly matched wide receiving groups. I don't know how you feel, Jake.
Yeah, it's tomato as far as I'm concerned. I think right now, they're both a little banged up injury wise. I think I would take the Bears slightly ahead, but not by much. I think Darnell, kind of puts that over the edge for me, even with the struggles. And Sean, I thought you wrote a good story earlier this week, or actually, I think John Dietz did that for us, or, the Herald. But I'd put them. I put the Bears slightly ahead of the Giants in the wide receiver category, but not by much.
Yeah, you can look at Kenny Galladay and say, okay, there's a guy who's a 2-time 1,000-yard receiver. Maybe that trumps Darnell Mooney, who did it last year, but
they're not
off to a rough start. But you know what? They're not throwing Kenny Galladay the ball. He's not involved. He has 2 receptions on the season. So, you can't really. I don't know that you can make that argument because yes, he's on the team and yes, he's out there, but he's not really involved. And we don't even know if he's going to be there long term, and they don't seem to have much of a plan for that situation.
Right.
Let's see, guys. Sorry, I'm just parsing through the questions here. Keep them coming. If you got Bears Giants questions, we are answering your questions.
Robert
live.
Is quite active here.
Yes, Robert, we love the comments. Let's see. Should we utilize Ebner or Blasingame in the passing game? I saw Kari Blasingame had some receptions in training camp. They had some they gave him some opportunities leaking out to the to the outside, and he made some nice catches, and we haven't really seen that yet. I'm kind of waiting for them to break that out, because he's been out there, and they've had success when they have the fullback on the field. They just haven't given the fullback the ball. That hasn't been a part of the plan, and maybe that's just because Khalil Herbert's been doing so well, and David Montgomery had a good game before that. But I'm waiting for them to throw Blasingame the ball, because he's going to get the ball in his hands, and he's a big dude. He's faster than he looks too. I know he's a big guy, but he's faster, and I do expect Ebner to be involved if Montgomery is not playing today, or not today, this week. And I think he had 7 carries last week after David went out. So I would expect to see him out there. The curious thing to me is what's going to happen on kick return if David doesn't play but Velus Jones is back. Are they going to have Ebner, or are they going to have Velus Jones doing kick return? I don't know how they're going to play that one out. You got Jake. They got 2 really good return men. I mean, that's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, you took the phrase right out of my mouth. I'm leaning again. I think later today with the post-practice injury report again with Velus is going to tell us a lot, or a pretty good indication anyway. Going into Sunday, I could see Ebner staying back there at kick return, even if Velus is active. My guess is they're probably not going to throw the guy that had a bunch of hamstring problems right into the thick of special teams with some of the gang tackle type stuff. I think they're going to give him some sort of a pitch count and try to get him eased back into things, but we'll see. But that's one of the reasons why he was drafted out of Tennessee was that kick return and special teams potential. So the way the Bears have been playing, you do need competency in all phases of the game, and that could help elevate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you like having options there. And Velus looked really good. He had that really good punt return in the preseason, and another decent kick return as well. He only played in 1 preseason game. I'm going to go back to Rick here. He's more of a comment. Jalen Jones was decent last week. That's the rookie cornerback from Ole Miss, and that's a good point too. Yeah, I mean, he didn't play a ton of snaps, but I thought he looked good. But a thing that we haven't really touched on is that Jalen Johnson hasn't been practicing again this week. That was, he missed the last game. That made them have to shuffle things around a little bit at that cornerback position. Jake, if Jalen can't go, are you feeling more confident about that after seeing what they did last week against Houston, or where are you kind of at when you look at the cornerback position?
Well, I think if you're going to be in a stretch where you're missing your top cornerback, facing Houston and New York, is probably the 2 games, for that to happen. Look, I think, he went on the score earlier this week. He talks to Spiegel and Parkins, and he had indicated that even if it was a playoff game, he probably wouldn't be able to go. So that leads me to believe that, the quad injury is a little bit more serious than, first initial thoughts, right? When you see that pop up, he's inactive. So we'll see, as his situation continues to progress over time. But I think the Bears are in fine shape for the time being, even with him missing. You mentioned Jalen Jones. He played solid last week. We talked earlier this week a lot about Kindle Vildor and his kind of ascension and bouncing back there. He played quite well once he got settled in, and Kyler can slide out there, come nickel and all that stuff. So I think the Bears secondary, you'd like Jalen Johnson out there, no doubt. He takes away half the field effectively. But this is the stretch where if you miss him for some time, the Bears should be okay.
Yeah, and you look at what Aaron Rodgers did in targeting the rookie Kyler Gordon so much in week 2. That's kind of the best quarterbacks do that. But I think when you're talking about young quarterbacks, they're just not there. They're just not at that level the same way that the guy like Aaron Rodgers is. And I think that's, you don't see the Davis Mills taking advantage of that. You don't see the Daniel Jones taking advantage of that. I think that, the Bears will be fine without Jalen Johnson. If he's unable to go this week, you're not playing a juggernaut offense. You're not playing a juggernaut passing game. You can weather the storm a little bit without a guy like Jalen Johnson.
I'd be a little bit more concerned if, he's not practicing come, Minnesota week, obviously with Justin Jefferson there. That's when you start, if you're a Bears fan and you're wondering, okay, what's the situation? That's when you start maybe getting a little concerned about availability moving forward. But again, I think, for a couple of weeks, see where things are at, and then move accordingly.
All right, I'm going to bring our guy Shane Jackson in from Bet Chicago Sports. Here we go. Shane, welcome to the show. How are you doing this Friday morning?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Sean?
Doing well. We're talking some Bears Giants. Guys, we got Shane here every Friday to talk sports betting, and we're obviously gonna do that with the lens of the Bears game. And this week it's the Giants. And Shane, you study this stuff, you look at this stuff. Where are you at right now with Bears Giants, and what is it? Giants by 2.5 at this point?
It's still 3 at Caesar Sportsbook,
okay.
Which is the official odds partner of Bet Chicago Sports. But yeah, I mean, yesterday, Adam Chernoff of Covers released on his Telegram chat the Bears play at plus 3.5 at certain sportsbook. You saw that move all the way down to 3 across the board. I imagine it'll settle at 3. I don't think they want to move off the key number of 3. I think you'd open yourself to maybe some more Giants bets that way. I think they would like their position, prefer their position to being at 3.5. So yeah, it's weird to me. It's like similar to last week where I don't think there's that big of a gap between these two teams, but they're saying that there's a bigger gap here because last week it was Bears minus 2.5 against the Texans in Soldier Field, which meant on a neutral they're closer to even compared to the Giants and the Bears game this week because obviously home field advantage is not full 3 points; it's more like 1.8, 2 points. And so to me, I don't necessarily agree with that. I lean the Bears side on the spread. Haven't completely gotten there because I would have preferred the 3.5. It just doesn't look like it's going to get there.
And, we talked about it last week and it seems like we've talked about it a couple of weeks now, but we're looking at another low total points, aren't we?
Absolutely, yes. I was brave enough to take the over last week and it came through pretty convincingly, I guess. They didn't really do much in the fourth quarter until the end, but you didn't really need that. But yeah, it's now 39.5 this week, right in line with what it was last week, except for this time, I think I would lean the under, just given that I don't feel as confident about these teams, putting some points together. And especially when you consider a lot of these teams are kind of similarly built, right? They both have receiver rooms that leave a lot to be desired, and they want to lean on the ground game. And so, yeah, I think this could be a game that gets over in a hurry with very few points scored.
Yeah, we could be looking at one of those games where the clock is running a lot. They're running the football, they're keeping it in bounds, not a whole lot of drop passes. Well, maybe there will be a lot of drop passes, but maybe not a lot of drop backs. As you're looking at this game, it's maybe not a surprise that number is so low. I'm going to throw up a question here from Timothy as we're talking Bears here. Do you think part of the problem with Fields is him trying to take too many deep shots and not taking enough short throws? That was a problem on that one interception, Jake. Overall, though, where do you think Justin is as far as is he? I lean towards he's not necessarily taking too many deep shots. I mean, we haven't seen him do it a whole lot. But do you think there's more stuff underneath that he can take advantage of?
Yeah, of course. I don't think he takes a whole lot of chances with the home run ball. I think, again, going back to that Mooney interception, it's a guy trying to make a play at a critical point in the game. You go back to the, not to go back to last week, but Darnell Mooney, again, you give him that little just scat route and he drops it, so I don't think it's him, trying to force the issue downfield. First of all, there haven't been very many opportunities for that. Number two, again, as I've said before, I don't think he sees the field as comfortably as he'd like to, and that's leading to some of the issues.
If anything, it's the opposite, right? Like last year, he was second in big-time throw rate among quarterbacks with at least 200 attempts. So last year, you saw him as a rookie. Hey, he had a few of these, you can't teach that type of plays. This year, He has 0 big-time throws through 3 weeks. If anything, you want to see more of him taking shots because he has the arm strength.
And I think goes back to what Jake and I were talking about earlier when, talking about Luke Getsy and people are wondering when he's going to quote unquote open up the passing game. I think that's what people mean. They want to see him take a few more shots and he really hasn't done that a whole lot. And yeah, the one time he did that last week, he got picked off, which is unfortunate. But he was maybe, that was maybe a situation where he shouldn't have taken that shot. There were 3 guys around his target. Guys, if you're listening, if you're with us on YouTube, get your questions in. Shane can answer your sports betting questions. Jake can take your Bears questions, and Shane, as we're looking at this Bears Giants game, you got any props for us that you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I think I'm going to write about it today. Obviously, much has been made this week about Justin Fields versus the blitz. He is 33rd in EPA against the blitz through 3 weeks. Don Wink Martindale from the Ravens, now with the Giants, obviously blitzes a lot, and he has the 3rd highest blitz rate through 3 weeks with the Giants, similar to what we saw with the Ravens when he was the DC there as well. But while that might limit his production from a passing standpoint, it actually, I think, opens the door for maybe some busted plays on scrambles if you roll them out and simplify things for him a little bit. And so right now his rushing yardage prop is 35.5. We have a boost at Caesar Sportsbook that needs Justin Fields to get to 50 rushing yards, but he's hovered around that number in situations like this. He's been in the 30 to 40 range. And so I kind of like that number. I think that is the way to attack this matchup from a player prop perspective. Justin Fields' passing numbers, props are obviously going down again. And I thought last week might have been the buy low point. Maybe that is this week against the Giants. But yeah, it's tough to take away too much from the Ravens game, right? Because he only played 30 snaps before he got injured. But even in that game, he had 30-some rushing yards before he exited the game. So I do like the rushing yards prop this week for Justin Fields.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. That seems to be a way that seems to be a way that you can attack Justin Fields and sort of make him uncomfortable in there. And yeah, maybe that does lead to him, running from the pocket and picking up some more yards with his legs. Jake, we saw that in early on in that game against Houston. He had that run, 29 plus yards, where he was able to make that happen. Do you think that he needs to do a little bit more of that, or is he, is he not standing in the pocket long enough?
I mean, I think it varies by play, right? I mean,
yeah,
I think in general, you would like to see him stay in the pocket a little bit more. Obviously, with some of the pass rush win rate for the Giants, they've been able to get home. And so, there'll be opportunities for them to sneak through. I think the big thing for Justin too, and Shane, I'd be curious to hear what you think. I think sometimes Justin just needs to slow down. Like, I feel like some of it's a little too mechanical. Like sometimes he's up here where last year, sometimes you just saw the raw ability athlete take over. And it seemed like he was a little bit more comfortable just trying to be an athlete more so than, mechanical quarterback.
I think that does make a lot of sense. It's always interesting, right? Because it's never one issue with some of these quarterbacks or really anything in football. It's always complicated. Like, they're not really putting too much on his plate. They're not letting him get out in the open that way as well with offensively the way they're calling the games. And they shouldn't, right? They're 2-1 with the way they're doing it. Right. But I do agree with that. Coming out of college, the knock on him was progressions and maybe thinking too much. And Ohio State knew how to simplify that system a little bit. And so I wonder if you can at least take elements from that in college and maybe implement here. Because, I mean, this is his 3rd offense in 3 years. So there is a lot of thinking going on. And maybe if you can just say, hey, Justin, let's get you out. Let's make you make one read. If it's not open, go run. Maybe if you break it down to that simplicity, maybe he can make something happen with his athleticism, as you kind of mentioned, Jake. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's getting overlooked, I think, that, just how hard, this is a new offense. And you're right. This is 3rd offense in 3 years, dating back to college. And it takes guys time to feel comfortable. And that's what we're seeing at this point with Justin. It's only been 3 games in this offense. He's only worked with Luke Getsy for 7-8 months, whatever it is at this point. That relationship is going to evolve, and his understanding of what Getsy wants him to do is going to continue to evolve. Not just week to week, but as the season goes along and as you look towards next year. Looking sort of big picture around the league, Shane, what are you liking from a betting perspective as you look across the games this week?
Yeah, this is a really tough week, right? You have to take stances on games because, including last night's game, there was 12 games with the spread of 3.5 or lower. And so it was tough to navigate through the spread. I only came up with 3 picks on the spread wise, and one of them was last night when I took Cincinnati -3, -3.5, whatever the number ended up being. And that ended up being sweat free. Obviously, the Tua injury played a part into it as well. But on Sunday, I think I like the Browns. I know the sharp money's coming in on the Falcons, but it's another situation spot that I like. The Browns get 10 days of rest. I know they go to Atlanta, and I think the Falcons are the best of the bad teams, but they're still a bad team. And I think Marcus Mariota, while he's been fine, he still leaves a little bit meat on the bone offensively, I think, and misses some of the clean throws. So I don't know. I think the Browns can get the job done. I think the spread's down to 1, and I got it at 1.5. So already moving against me, but I still prefer the Browns in that matchup. And then on the last one is the Cardinals against the Panthers. I'm going back to the Cardinals. I think I took a week off from them, but to me, it seems like the ultimate buy low spot for them. They're the underdog and going into Carolina, and the Panthers just can't score, right? And I don't think the Cardinals defense has been terrible other than the Chiefs game. And so I'll prefer to lean on and bet on Kyler Murray scoring more than the Panthers.
Yeah, initially, just hearing you talk about that, I would take Kyler Murray, scoring as well, just to, that it's been ugly for Baker Mayfield and the Panthers so far early on this season. If you're listening with us and you got any other Bears questions, any other sports betting questions, throw them in the chat. We got a couple minutes here before we wrap it up. We do appreciate you guys jumping on with us and your involvement and your comments and questions. It makes it fun every week. I'm going to throw one more up here from Robert. Saquon more than 100 rushing yards. Same with Khalil. Jake, I'll throw this to you first. What do you think about 100 rushing yards for the 2 running backs in this game?
Well, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for both backs to do that. I would take that. I'd take Saquon about 100 yards rushing. Khalil, I'm not as confident on, but we'll see. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is assuming that David Montgomery doesn't play in this game, which
Right.
It seems to be trending in that direction. I would feel, if Khalil's the starter, I would feel pretty comfortable betting him to get 100 rushing yards. We've seen the Bears run the heck out of the ball with David, with Khalil. So I feel like that is an attainable goal. He certainly surpassed that pretty easily last week. Saquon, I kind of lean with you on this one too, Jake, though. I think the Bears have not had a particularly easy time stopping the run, and Saquon has looked really good these first 3 games. I could see both these teams, putting up big rushing numbers. Shane, you want to weigh in on this one?
Well, we have a line out for one of these guys. Props start
right.
getting released Thursday night, Friday morning range. And Saquon Barkley has an over-under of 79.5. So if you feel confident about the over, you got a lot of wiggle room. And
I'd go over.
Yeah, I think it's probably the play. You mentioned the Bears' struggles against the run so far through 3 weeks. Some of that is weighted by the fact that they went against the 49ers and the Packers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Like Saquon always has the ability to have one play where he busts through, and you're talking about 40 yards on one play, right? And then there's a lot of runs where he just dives at the middle for a yard.
He's kind of a boomer bust running back. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I do think it's probably the right side, go over and just lean on the rushing tackle with both these teams. But yeah, you definitely have wiggle room if you want to bet at Caesar Sportsbook right now. All
right. Last thing before we get out of here, and I'm going to throw it to you guys first and hear what you have to say. But our picks for this game, where are we at? What do we think? Bears, Giants, who you got?
Shane, you want to take this one first?
Sure. Yeah, I'll be the weirdo and I'll just take the Bears. I don't know really why. I don't think the Giants are necessarily that good. I think they're both kind of bad teams, right? But the Giants, I mean, they went for 2 in week 1 and could have lost that game. They had 2 fumbles that led to Panthers scores in week 2 that led to scores by the Panthers. And they could have lost that game as well if that doesn't happen. And then obviously we saw them lose to Cooper Rush and the Cowboys on week 3. So yeah, I don't know. I just think I trust. This feels like a matchup that can come down to coaching, and I think I trust Matt Eberflus a little bit more. You've seen his second half adjustments really come through 3 weeks, and I wrote about it at shawlocal.com/bet. So I will just trust that they find a way to get it done. And if Justin Fields turns out to have his best game of the year, that's really going to pull this in the Bears' direction. So I will take the underdog the points, the money line, all of it, and the Bears win outright.
I'm with you, Shane. I think this is a winnable game for the Bears. I think they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage a little bit better than the Giants have shown over the last couple of weeks. And as maligned as the offense is with Justin and where it's at, there's going to be opportunities still to make plays despite all the, some of the struggles and concerns over the last couple of weeks. So I picked the Bears by 3, 2017.
27. All right. I'm going to be the contrarian here. I'm going to go with the Giants, and I think this is going to be an ugly slugfest. I got the Giants 13-10 in a low scoring brawl out in New Jersey. And, I just think this is a coin toss game, and I'm going to go with the home team in a coin toss game. And we haven't seen Justin Fields throw the ball as well as you want. And I don't know if they fall behind. We'll have to see what that looks like as they're trying to fight back into a game, playing from behind in the fourth quarter. I got the Giants by 3. We're going to head out, guys. Thanks to everyone who has joined us this morning. This has been the ShawLocal.com Bears Insider Podcast. The best way to support us is to subscribe at ShawLocal.com. Come get our coverage. Come get our Bears coverage. Jake's preps coverage out. Jake's got a late night tonight. High school football coming up. So we got to get him out of here so he can rest
Drink
up.
the monster.
For Shane Jackson, for Jake Bartleson, I'm Sean Hammond. Thanks everyone for joining us, and have a great Friday. Enjoy your weekend.